Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Learn with Flo. For everyone joining us live, welcome, welcome. I'm excited to touch base with you guys this week because I left you hanging a little bit after our last episode of Learn with Flo and then rudely took a week hiatus. But we are back because I want to continue our conversations around some of these age-related hormonal decline. Of course, when we're thinking about this in our female population, we're talking about that so popular conversation around perimenopause. And so over the last couple episodes, I've really been focusing on our kind of perimenopause prep toolbox, some of the things that I definitely speak about and coach a lot of my perimenopausal patients about, just to kind of dispel some of the gaslighting untruths and myths that are out there, some of the craziness that is circulating around the perimenopause conversation. And that led us into really being able to dive into a real reframe around perimenopause, because what I see so frequently is women kind of getting lulled into this false sense of reality that perimenopause is this really big, scary, there's a lot of fear associated with it. There's a lot of failure associated with it. Like, oh my gosh, my body is failing and my hormones are declining. And it's like, no. Actually, what's happening here is we're getting this reveal. We're getting a huge reveal of what's been going on behind the scenes the whole time, that our hormones like estrogen and progesterone and even testosterone are kind of holding up the curtain around. And when that curtain and that veil drops in the perimenopausal journey, for females, or honestly, it even happens in our males as well too, this age-related hormonal decline that we see, it really starts to reveal the picture that's been going on behind the scenes the whole time. But we then blame hormones. And how often are we now taught to just like, hurry, quick, put the veil back up, make this picture go away, and we just add more hormones to a picture that maybe this actually isn't just a hormonal issue after all, but it's actually our body really revealing to us what we should have been paying attention to the whole time. We should have been paying attention to things like, nutrition, blood sugar regulation, things like our lifestyle and our circadian rhythm, things like over-exercising, under-recovering, running our nervous system and our adrenals into the ground, or persistent gut health issues that we just ignored, or the fact that we're not detoxing our hormones properly. It's like all of these things are really revealed to us in that age-related hormonal decline process. And again, I think the most vulnerable population of people out there is going to be that perimenopausal female, but this is also very pertinent and related to males because they also experience some age-related hormonal declines. It just so happens to be a little bit more testosterone driven, but it's still the same idea. It's a great reveal because what is happening is our hormones aren't just declining, and this is not a failure of the system. This is not always just something to be pathologized and we have to hurry up and fix it and make it go away. It's like, no, this picture is actually a very natural process. And if we're not tolerating the age-related hormonal declines very well, then it probably should clue us off to something that is wanting to get our attention that we've probably been ignoring for quite some time. So with all of those foundational conversations kind of laid already, I want to really talk today about adding in this next level layer, because if we're all on the same page about this reframe of like, oh man, you're right, like I see the reframe that you're talking about, like progesterone and estrogen and testosterone, these like curtains fall and all of a sudden people can like, and I can see my mess behind the scenes that I wasn't answering to begin with. Where do I start, right? What do I do? Well, adding in this next level layer is where we really start to understand this perimenopausal and hormonal transition journey so much better. Because if we only buy into the fear-mongering propaganda out there that like perimenopause is this something that has to be treated, and it's something that is like, it just makes us feel like our body is failing us and our body is broken. It's like, no. What is actually happening here is there's this great shift going on. And this is what we don't hear about on social media all the time. So I'm going to be the person to bring these conversations to light. You guys know I'm really good at that. But also I want to talk about physiologically some of the truths that happen that we don't hear about. And so then we feel like we can't prepare properly for things like perimenopause or other age-related hormonal declines. And it's almost just like this ticking time bomb. And we just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm inevitably going to struggle through this. That is not true. I will say that right here and right now, that is not true, not inevitable, that every female or every male will experience just debilitating hormonal decline symptoms. And I think one of the biggest differentiating factors of that is the people that are realizing that they have a lot of control in their hands about dictating that overall hormonal decline naturally by understanding that it's not a failure of the system, of our hormones just failing us and disappearing forever. But what physiologically is happening is the body is shifting the job to something else in the body. So what happens here is when, let's just take females, for example, when your ovaries begin to stop their lifelong job, which is getting communication signals from the brain and ovulating consistently every month, eventually the female body runs out of eggs. We run out of follicles. We are only born with so many follicles, and over our lifespan, we will ovulate them, and we will also, some of them will just naturally die. And once all of those follicles are gone, we have what's called full ovarian senescence, and it is menopause, right? And what we kind of pathologize as menopause of like, ooh, that's your body failing. No, it's not your body failing. Your ovaries are passing the buck. They're passing the baton over to another part of the body and being like, listen, my job here is done. Now you get to take over, because guess what? We're not ovulating consistently every month, but we still need some hormones, right? So who gets to take that over? Someone else has to step up, and that someone is your adrenals. And this is what happens when we have this whole generation of females. And also, like I said, this applies to males and their age-related hormone decline as well too, where they're entering these ages of hormonal changes already fried. Their adrenals are already taxed, and then they're not just like walking and gliding into menopause, they are crashing into it like a brick wall. Right? And this is what I want to really educate individuals on, because I don't think you need a PhD to understand your body. But physiologically, let's start about what's really happening in that perimenopausal picture, or even in my males, what's happening in something that we dub andropause, which is really just a fancy way of saying that your testosterone levels also decline with age. What's happening in those perimenopause or andropause type of transitions is your hormones don't just vanish. Okay. I don't know how to like debunk that fear for you, but your hormones don't just vanish. They just shift. Okay. They shift in how they're made. They shift in where they're metabolizing, and how they're metabolized, and what they're also trying to protect you from. So in our 20s and our 30s, if we just take the female metabolism here, the ovaries are going to be the primary producers of estrogen and progesterone. Those are going to be the main hormones that women are really going to feel responsive to. In males, we have the testes, and the testes are going to produce testosterone, and that's what males are very responsive to. So we have these like primary glands, our ovaries and our testes, that are holding up a majority of that hormone production baton, right? That's like one of their primary goals. They do a lot of the heavy lifting for menstrual cycles, fertility, bone health, mood, memory, cognition, cardiovascular health, even our immune system function, right? But as we enter some of those age-related hormone declines, maybe it's in our early 40s into our 50s, things like our menstrual cycle become more sporadic. The ovaries are starting to downshift their production of hormones because they're running out of follicles, right? A completely normal response, not because they're broken. They're not broken. It's because the body is preparing to hand over the reins, okay? And who's supposed to take over? But those adrenal glands, like we talked about. These are little walnut-sized glands that sit right on top of our kidneys, and they are known for producing our stress response. We think of hormones like epinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol. Yep, that's those guys. But our adrenals also create a very specific hormone called DHEA. If you haven't heard of DHEA, it is a hormone that is made in the adrenal glands, and it goes on to get converted into testosterone, which goes on to get converted into estrogen. So DHEA is a precursor to help us make estrogen and testosterone. So don't think that your ovaries and your testes are the only things in your body that are producing sex hormones for you, because it's not true. Your adrenals do that too. We just have to think of our adrenals almost as like this backup generator. Once like the ovaries and the testes have a little bit of a slow decline with that, the adrenals are then going to have to pick up a little bit more of that hormone generation. But here's the problem. This is all fine and dandy in a perfectly healthy metabolism, but the adrenals can only take over if they're strong enough and well equipped enough to do that. And for most women and even most males that are entering those like 40s, 50s age-related hormone decline, the adrenals aren't in great shape. Let's be real, because guess what? No one has taught us this. No one has taught us in our 20s and 30s and early 40s to give a flying F about our adrenals, because we're not thinking about that at that point in time, right? And then when we crash into a perimenopausal wall, we blame our hormones, when in reality, I'm like, we should be blaming our adrenals here, because they're the ones that should have been taking over this whole shift and this whole process this whole time. But if by your early 40s, your adrenals have likely been chronically overstimulated from decades at this point of things like blood sugar dysregulation, because we've been dieting ourselves to death, and we try, Whole30 and keto and intermittent fasting and counting macros and doing all of these crazy things. Also maybe from like over exercising of like our days of like boot camp classes and CrossFit and spin classes and marathon training. And then we couple that with underfueling, and we're really frying our adrenals. And then we skip meals, we skip sleep. We're in this constant cycle of like this hustle and grind. We're people pleasing, perfectionism. We just live in this like constant go mode. Hustle and grind, and I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of mentality, right? Which means that when the body needs the adrenals to step up to stabilize this hormonal transition, they can't. They're already maxed out, they're already burned out, they're already tapped out, and that they don't have any reserves in the moment. And then plan C, our body does have another backup strategy. We don't like it. We don't like this backup strategy, just as a warning for you. But then your body brilliantly turns to our fat cells, okay? Our adipose tissue, which is a scientific name for our fat cells. Adipose tissue begins producing a really weak sauce form of estrone in the body, which is a form of estrogen. And it essentially is trying to compensate for the loss of estrogen because the ovaries are offline. They're like, we're done. I tried to pass the buck to the adrenals. She's been frying her adrenals for years. And so now the fat cells get to take over, right? Someone's got to step up and produce some estrogen for us here. And this is where it gets a little bit chaotic, because estrogen is now being produced inconsistently by a really inflamed and stressed out fat tissue here. Your liver is going to be overwhelmed trying to clear it. Your cortisol is off. You get hot flashes, mood swings, weight gain, anxiety, fatigue, insomnia. And the message that people are selling you now is like, oh, it's just your hormones. Here, take more hormones. And it's like, but you already have hormones, right? It's like, you just don't have the resilience or the regulation to be able to use them properly. And no one told you that hormone production doesn't just like tank. We don't just pull the rug out from underneath you. It doesn't decline. It's trying to relocate here. But if your adrenals are not prepared to take that over, then this entire rhythm is going to collapse. And then we like blame our hormones. And I'm just like, it's not your hormones problem here. This is very much an adrenal issue, a foundations issue that no one taught you was going to be a very major aspect of that age-related hormone decline. Like if you're a male, like this is part of your andropause picture. And if you're a female, this is very much part of your perimenopause picture. So when we think about, like I said, that typical picture leading up into our 40s, usually, like I said, what I see clinically in practice is males and females, but let's be real, females are kind of a little bit more guilty of this, is we spend our 20s under eating, over exercising, on hormonal birth control, which depletes us of all of our major micronutrients. We have late nights, probably too much a caffeine that we just like consider is like a food group at that point, and we're like making a meal out of coffee. And then in our 30s, we end up with like more high pressured careers. We're in more of our pregnancy and postpartum era. We're lacking sleep. We're on this go, go, go pace. We take on the emotional labor of the home. We're multitasking all day long. And then by the time we get to our 40s, now we're in this like sandwich generation where we have aging parents, but also still like rearing children. We probably have a lot of unprocessed trauma from our childhood. Our identity is shifting a little bit. It's like, who am I? And we're still expected to just like do it all. And we get these messages from society of like, you're not doing enough, push through it, you're fine, it's just stress, it's just a normal part of aging. And then we're just fed like more hormones, like that's normal. It's like this life demands such a high cortisol output every single day. And when your cortisol has been chronically elevated or just like completely tanked, your body can't buffer that balance into perimenopause anymore. Like your body was brilliantly designed for those ovaries to, yes, gradually run out of follicles, gradually go offline. And they are then expecting to be able to pass the baton to the adrenals. If we have been spending our 20s and our 30s and our early 40s just tanking our adrenals with our like I said, dieting and over exercising, perfectionism techniques, and blood sugar dysregulation, we're probably not going to respond very well to that transition. And so we can't just blame hormones and add more hormones into a system that isn't really ready for it yet. So when I think about the lowdown holistic medicine thought process here of approaching adrenal rehabilitation a little bit differently, this is what I'm talking about when I'm putting together a perimenopause prep plan, or for our males, like that andropause prep plan. As those hormones we know are going to gradually decline with age, that is a very natural process. Are they ready to pass the buck? And is the adrenals ready to pick up that baton and carry it for us? Or are they going to deny it and like, nope, I can't carry that. And so then our body has to find plan C, plan D, which usually aren't great options. So if you feel like you're like, I get what you're putting down, Lauryn, what does that look like? If your body feels like it's whispering or kind of screaming, maybe in a little bit of a panic, and then we get fueled more of that on social media because we think perimenopause is this big, scary, fear-mongering time in our life. This is exactly why we do things different here at the Lowdown Methods, okay? So number one, test, don't guess, okay? You deserve access to objective data of what is going on in your body. You already feel the subjective experience, right? Of the mood swings, the body composition changes, the bloating, the gut changes, the mood changes, you can't sleep, right? Cycle symptoms are exploding. We need to kind of test and get a hold of that picture, not just like, oh, ship shape, here, run some normal labs, like you're fine. No, this is someone who can actually do a little bit more of a deep dive for you. I do think blood work is a great place to start because we can get an access picture to your blood sugar dysregulation, to your liver detoxification pathways. We can see where your body might be running on empty from a nutrient depletion standpoint, but we can also take blood work and we can do even deeper dive digging as well too. One of my favorite ones that I like to use with my perimenopausal females is a Dutch test. Dutch stands for Dried Urine Total Comprehensive Hormone Analysis, but it's essentially helps us not just look at your sex hormones. Sure, we get to look at progesterone and estrogen and testosterone and DHEA, but guess what we also get to look at right side by side of your hormones? We get to look at your adrenals. We get to look at your cortisol. We get to look at how your cortisol is responding throughout the day. We get to look at how your body's metabolizing cortisol because we understand how closely tied together the adrenals and the hormonal situation is. If the hormonal situation, like the ovaries are about ready to try to pass the baton and we're looking at a really depleted cortisol picture, this probably isn't going to go well. Right? So taking a look at something like a Dutch test, I can take a look at that and we can have some objective data to really see, are the adrenals ready to pick up this baton, or do we have some work to do so that by the time we get into a full-fledged perimenopause, menopause picture, we're not just pulling the rug out from underneath us and then blaming our hormones. And plus with the Dutch test, we'll be able to really see how your body is not only producing but also metabolizing hormones right now. Because if we do want to add in any strategic like hormone replacement therapy or anything like that down the road, we have to be able to see, are you ready for it? Like, what is the terrain and the soil in which is going to be accepting those hormones to mitigate any potential side effects, right? So I test, don't guess is like step number one in this like adrenal rehab as I try to pass some of those hormones off to the adrenals. Number two is we're definitely going to think of a food forward intervention here at the Lowdown. I'm first and foremost going to always start with food as medicine. So some of the nutritional interventions here is the adrenals. Let's be real, they're kind of greedy. And they are done with your idea of like, I eat clean and I have a protein shake for breakfast. I'm like, they're done with that, right? Don't think that this like, I eat clean and I'm going to eat less, move more is going to move the needle in a perimenopause picture. It's just not, right? We have to think blood sugar and we have to think protein sufficiency here. So not just your like little cute diet proteins of like, oh, Greek yogurt and protein shakes and like egg whites. I'm like, no. We are getting into like nutrient density here. Are we getting enough? Are we getting enough nutrient dense sources? Are we eating at consistent intervals throughout the day? Are we making breakfast our like strongest start to the day? Because guess what? Your adrenals love that. So we have to be thinking of like a food forward intervention, and it's not just like eating clean or like counting your macros. This is truly blood sugar rehabilitation for the adrenals. Of course, lifestyle is something we have to talk about as well too, because we teach women how to rewire their stress response. This is not just like, oh, we're just going to meditate. Like that's probably not going to just move the needle. We need nervous system regulation practices. We need quality sleep strategies. We need a daily rhythm structured around like the light and dark cycles of the sun. So that way it's like, are we getting outside? Are we viewing full spectrum sunlight? Those things can be immensely helpful. Can we bring in strategic supplementation here? Yes. Are your adrenals just a nutrient sponge for things like vitamin C, for antioxidants, for high quality B vitamins, for things like trace minerals? Yeah, like the adrenals are going to maybe need some support, especially if we do some testing and we identify that those adrenals are not ready to pick up the baton here, and that this could be a situation where we're going to crash and burn into this brick wall of perimenopause. Then you best bet that we're going to throw all of our resources at rebuilding our adrenal capacity in order for them to be able to pick that baton up. So just note that when we think about this, like this age-related hormonal decline, I think one of the biggest overlooked factors that we're not talking about in conventional medicine, and quite frankly, I don't even think a lot of my peers from a functional medicine perspective are thinking about it this way, is we're just trying to put more hormones into a system. And it's not about more hormones here. It's not just about more hormones, I should say. This is about really understanding the complete shift that is happening from the sex glands. Like testes and ovaries are going to naturally produce less progesterone and estrogen and testosterone. And when that veil drops, are we ready to pass the buck to the adrenals? Are they going to pick it up and run with it, or are they going to crash and burn? And those are things that we really need to consider and not overlook in our thought process around age-related hormonal decline. So if this is something to where you feel like you're in this mess, you're in this mode, this is something you're curious about and you don't feel like you've been getting this type of root cause resolution care, head to the link in my bio. It will take you to my website where you can schedule a consult. We will start with labs first and foremost, not like labs after you've already met with your provider, but labs before we even meet, so that we have some hard, steadfast data to talk through, and we have something to really start to build our plan around. So hopefully this was helpful. Don't blame your hormones for everything that your adrenals might actually be dropping the ball on. We'll see you guys next week.